Holy smokes, everyone. President Joe Biden just made a huge mistake and we're all going to pay the price for this. Just recently, President Joe Biden announced his Inflation Reduction Act, and now today, he's just announced more inflation literally the following week just after he announced this Inflation Reduction Act, which is really more like an Inflation Acceleration Act. Because what did we learn in 2020? What hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars of stimulus does to inflation? That's right, it makes it worse. And that's what I'm going to be going over specifically in this video. I'm not going to be going over the politics. I'm just simply going to go over the economics of the situation we're in. So everyone, let's not waste any time. Let's get into the news, the facts, and the data. Okay, so last week, President Joe Biden announced his Inflation Reduction Act, which is just really more like a repackaged, rebranded Build Back Better plan, where there's going to be huge amounts of incentives and huge amounts of stimulus and huge amounts of programs to help transition to more renewable energy, which is great, as long as it's affordable, as long as they don't shut off all the coal power plants overnight and have these huge blackouts that we've been seeing around the world, not just in the US, as long as we don't have an energy crisis, and as long as it doesn't make people's energy bills go to $5,000 a year like what we're seeing in the UK at the moment. But saying that this act is going to reduce inflation is laughable. Spending hundreds of billions of dollars is not going to reduce inflation. But let's take their word for it and say, okay, it is going to reduce inflation a little bit. Well, today they just announced hundreds of billions of dollars of student loan forgiveness. Listen to this. Biden cancels $10,000 in federal student loan debt for most borrowers. So President Joe Biden announced he'll be doing $10,000 in student loan forgiveness, but some people actually get up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness under the Pell Grant. So nearly 45% of borrowers, or 20 million people, will have their debt cancelled altogether. And to be eligible for this, you need to be earning under $125,000 per year. But unfortunately, people, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Now, if you're eligible for it, of course, go ahead and take it. I would if I was in your situation. But this is going to cost nearly $500 billion in more stimulus into the economy right when inflation is surging higher and higher. That combined with the Inflation Reduction Act, this is going to be nearly another $1 trillion pumped into the economy right when inflation is surging. And what this means is this is going to be more work for the Federal Reserve. They're going to have to pick up the slack. They're going to have to lift interest rates higher. When this was announced, we saw the 10-year US Treasury spike, and the 10-year US Treasury has now hit 3.1%. And I expect the Federal Reserve is going to have to get more aggressive. And it'll be very interesting to see what the Federal Reserve has to say at the Jackson Hole Summit. But unfortunately, people, this is just going to make the debt crisis. There is $1.7 trillion worth of student loan debts. This is just going to make the problems even worse, because these universities, these colleges, they know the government is going to back these loans, so they're just going to increase their prices. And I wouldn't be surprised if over the next year or two, the $10,000 debt they cancelled, I wouldn't be surprised if they just raise their tuition by $5,000 to $10,000. And this is how we're all going to pay for this. So Biden's student debt forgiveness plan may cost taxpayers an average of $2,000, some policy experts say. So that's right, people. Remember, we pay for these government programs. They don't just print and give away free money. It is paid for taxpayers. And even if you're not a taxpayer, you're a student, your tuition costs are going to increase because, again, the universities know the government will be there to foot the bill and the taxpayers. And not to mention, it'll make inflation worse as well. And we all know inflation is a hidden tax because the government can't afford to repay the debt, so they need inflation to devalue the debt. And this is kind of like a slap in the face to all the past generations, all the people that worked so hard to pay their debts off or to pay for their college education in cash, or the parents that had to sacrifice to pay for their kids' college in cash. And I just find it laughable. The government solution always for a debt problem is just throw more money at it. If things are too expensive, just throw more money at it. It's like telling a fat person in order to lose weight, you need to eat more. The only way to really fix the issue is get rid of all these loans altogether and make it so people actually have to pay cash for their education. You may think, pay cash for education, I can't afford it. Well, guess what? If people had to pay cash, the prices would plummet because nobody would be able to afford these prices. So these universities and colleges would have to slash their prices. It'll be the exact same for the housing market. The reason houses are so unaffordable is because people can repay the loan over 30 years, even 40 years in some cases now. If they made it that you had to pay house in cash, guess what? House prices would be 70% cheaper very, very quickly. And yes, while it would be hard to save up to buy that house in cash, it would pretty much be like saving up for a 20 or 30% deposit now. So again, people, the reason why I'm making this video is because I think this is a mistake. They're going to be adding hundreds of billions of dollars of stimulus when inflation is so high. This is going to make inflation worse. taxpayers are going to have to pay for this, and even consumers are going to have to pay for this with higher prices. And even these students that they're saying they're helping, really all it's going to do is make college and tuition more and more expensive. And with this adding more fuel onto the fire for inflation, I think the Federal Reserve is going to have to pick up the slack, get more aggressive, and we're going to see interest rates get higher and higher. And I think the markets don't realize the trouble that is coming ahead. But everyone, what do you think? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think this is what the government should be doing? Let me know down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.